exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. We're taping live at 2 Expose You Studio. I have Mr. Darrell Goodman, he's the founder, Mr. Ray Harvey, chief engineer. And today I have as a special guest, I have Chief Reggie Burgess, the chief of North Charleston. How you doing there, Chief Burgess?
I'm doing well, Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Growing up in North Charleston to become the 9th police chief of North Charleston, what does that mean to you?
First of all, it's a blessing that I had an opportunity to get into law enforcement after I came out of college. And once I got in it, I started from the ground level. I started to learn a whole lot more about myself as well about my community. And it's been a blessing more than anything to be able to work in the city that you grew up in. The city that I actually went to Head Start in, and kindergarten, and elementary and high school, and my church and my family. So it's a blessing for me. I thank the Lord every day.
Now, before we have anything, let's talk about how important is religion and God in your life? How important has that been in your life?
Well, Mr. Brown, every day I pray to the Lord, and I pray that He provides me with all the tools that I need to be a better person and to lead and guide the city that I work with. And every day, during the day, I'm either on my knees or I'm either talking to the Lord in some way, some form of fashion. So God is in my life. He's first on everything. And He's always been that because the Lord has brought me a mighty long way. I've had my mistakes. I've tripped and failed a couple of times, but He got me back up and I brushed myself off and He made me a better man to get through those trials and tribulations. So the Lord is first in my life.
And how does that feel to know that God has blessed you to be in law enforcement for over 30 years, 31, I guess it's 31 years. How does it feel to keep you and have covered you through all these years?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was growing up, coming from Union Heights, and we lived on the Dan Jenkins projects, and we lived on Georgia Green and Liberty Hill. Living in those neighborhoods, you actually experience a lot of good things and bad things. But one thing that was always consistent with my living in North Charleston growing up, my mother, when we had hard times, when we had real hard times, my mother would always say, the Lord will provide. I always remember that as a little kid in Head Start all the way to college. My mother always said, Lord will provide. I had to find God myself. Yes. I had to find my own personal relationship with Him. But I knew from experiences what He had actually did for my mother and my brothers and my father and my family. So I knew that if all I had to have done was to stay focused on the Lord, and He would see me through. And He's always been there for me.
Now, I know being in law enforcement for so long, you had to have that support of your family. How important was it to have that support of your family in that law enforcement field?
Keeping it real,
yes, sir.
I'm African American. I'm born black, I'm going to die black.
Yes, sir.
So I love my heritage. But I realized a long time ago, way before I was in law enforcement, that the African American community in law enforcement has always had issues with each other. So I knew going into law enforcement that I have to not only worry about, the black side of things, but the blue side of it. In other words, sometimes I'm too black for the blue, and sometimes I'm too blue for the black. But I never let that hold me down because my main objective is to bring peace and tranquility to communities. And the only way I knew about doing it was to be a part of it. My father told me, son, you can change a lot of things if you're on the inside. If you're on the inside, you can change a lot of things. And you can help better the outside of things. So with me, I just knew that getting into law enforcement and let law enforcement see black people as they really are. From the internal part of law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Then that way, when they go out to serve African Americans, they have already been in contact with African Americans on the inside, and they know how to better navigate those conversations.
Back in 1989, when you first decided to get into law enforcement, when you told your family and your friends that you were getting into that field, what kind of advice or what did they kind of like tell you? I know it's kind of like I know.
See, I'm not your traditional chief
Yes, sir.
or sheriff. I came off the football field. My whole dream was to get to the NFL. I had three things in my mind. I remember my father said, "Who plays on Fridays?" I said, "High school." He said, "Who plays on Saturdays?" College. "Who plays on Sundays?" NFL. I had already had two of those already done. High school and college. I played, started every year in college. I was All-American. Went to Toronto Argonauts football team as a free agent. That didn't work out. So I couldn't get to the Sundays. So I had to shift gears. But I remember when I came home after that dream was gone, my parents always told me to make adjustments, keep moving. So when I decided to actually look into law enforcement, at first I went to go to SLED in Columbia. My mother said to me, "Son, why are you going to Columbia to work in SLED when you hadn't even cleaned your own yard yet?" She told me that. And I'm looking at my mother like, clean my own yard? So what she was basically telling me, you can do a whole lot better in your own neighborhood. Make this North Charleston better. Then you can work around the state side of things. So yeah, my parents supported me. Even though my parents were born in the 40s, in the segregated South.
Yes, sir.
They still believe in people. They still believe in treating people fair. They didn't have any issues with colors. They wanted me to do something good for all people.
Now I know to our young viewers, why it's so important to have goals, because I know, just like you said, you were very talented professionally as far as football, and you knew you was going to be a professional football player, but that didn't work out. So why is it so important to have goals in your life?
Well, when I was my senior year in college, I was no one receiving the MEAC. I was All-American. I actually went to the Freedom Bowl All-Star game. So my whole career was going exactly the way my dream, was all tuned in. I signed with Donnie Shell, former Pittsburgh Steelers great. He was my agent. So I'm rolling. So he gives me the free agency tryout with the Toronto Argonauts. But then when I got there, things changed. It wasn't for me. So in other words, Donnie told me then, he said, "Reggie, dreams are good, but goals are achievable. You need to have goals. And nothing wrong with dreaming, but you need to have goals because goals are realistic." So he said, "Your goal was to get to college, but along the way, you got that education. Take that education and make it work for you now." So I say to young people, anytime when you're out there, when you're in those classrooms and you have dreams, there's nothing wrong with dreaming, but be realistic about your dream. Is a small percentage of people are going to make the NFL, Major League Baseball, and basketball. But one thing, I could run fast, I could jump high, I could maneuver everything. I did everything you expected a high caliber athlete to do. But I'm 55 years old now. And Donnie Shell and my mother told me, there'll come a time that you can't run at 4.40. There's going to come a time you can't vertical leap 36 inches. But you will always be able to think. Use your mind. Feed yourself mentally so that when you get on these jobs, you will be better prepared. Because your legs and your back will not be as it was when you were younger, but your brain will always be new if you continue to feed it. So I'm saying to you, I've been where they're at, but I was realistic. Football didn't happen, but my life kept going because I understood the education part of it.
Now I know, as the police chief of North Charleston, you're big on community relationship. Why is that so important to you?
Well, I tell you, when I look at City Hall for 31 years, when I see the area that people come in to complain on police, officers, if they did something wrong or say something wrong. In 31 years, what has been constant for me, well, at least 28 of them, was the area that people came up to file complaints was on the level that I'm at, the second floor. And the majority of people that came to complain on police conduct was African Americans, people that look like me. So I said to myself, I have to change that. I have to change that, and I have to work on it quick. We went up to, in 2007, myself and the former Chief Burgess went up to Washington, D.C. to meet with the Department of Justice. At that time, we were getting the feedback on the audit that was performed after the Walter Scott shooting.
Yes, sir.
When we got up there, they told us that administration was not going to give out a report. We weren't going to have a report, but they were going to give us technical assistance through the Collaborative Reform Initiative. So they met with us in 18, beginning of 18, once I became the chief. When we were up there in 17, Chief Burgess asked them to help us to find ways to bring down crime and then build our relationship with the community. So they were working on those prerequisites. When I became the chief of police, knowing what I had known in the past, coming from all black neighborhoods, knowing what I see with the interaction with law enforcement in the black community, I flipped that. I asked the Department of Justice to bring in programs and practices and all types of things to help us to have a better relationship with our community. Then have us to work on crime. Let it be synonymous, but let our partnership, our relationship, our fellowship be the main goal. Because I believe this, Mr. Brown, that if we as an agency have a better relationship with the community we serve, once we develop that relationship, the community that we serve will help us to bring crime down. We can't do it by ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And that's law enforcement's problem. We can't do it by ourselves. We need the people to be a part of the crime prevention strategies. And that's why in my administration, it was strictly at first, always partnershiping, having a relationship with the community. And once you do that, you will see people start to come and tell you things. You will hear people start to say, stand up. As you notice, when I started walking at 18, I don't have to walk by myself now.
Yes,
the communities go out and walk. They have candlelight vigils. They go to the wakes. We have started working together to say we're going to have to do it together to bring crime and make it better for our city.
Yes,
so that's the thing. That's why I turned it. I want to have a better relationship with the community.
Chief, I have some footage right here of yourself, and back in.
Thank you. I didn't get up this morning thinking this was going to happen for me. I got up this morning thinking about how we're going to stop crime. How we're going to keep people safe.
Man, I just celebrated my 30th anniversary in law enforcement. Never thought, really, when I started out, that I was thinking about 30. I just wanted to do it year by year. I came because I started to come to all the summer programs, because I'm 100% behind all the summer programs, because I went to some summer programs when I was younger, and I loved them. So I want to be there to see how the kids, ended and what they were going to be doing. And I got here waiting on a big program to happen, and lo and behold, the program was about me. When you see young people look at you with passion in their faces, look at you and really saying to you that you're the reason why I'm going to succeed, because you're going to make sure that I get there. You're going to make sure I'm safe. You're going to look out for me. You're going to do the best you can to help me along the way. And they were saying that. And I saw that in their faces, and they were looking directly at me. When they came to me and hugged me and told me that they loved me and I was their hero, I want to be like you. I couldn't help it. I said to myself, Lord, maybe this is what you ordained me to do, was to do what I'm doing for 30 years and help my community in this way. I've always said it's good to give back, but it's best to go back and do. And that's what I guess what I'm doing. I came back home in my community, which I love. And when I saw those children, man, the way they, treated me, the way they looked at me, and the way they showed me love, I lost it. I got emotional. 99% of the people in our communities are good, law-abiding citizens. They care about law enforcement. They care about their homes, their communities, and their neighbors. what you saw in there today, that's the 99%. Because those kids in there and the families in there, they care about us. They support us. They're with us. They're standing with us. So when I see that, it reconfirms, you know, what we're trying to do. And that's police relationship building.
Thank you, Chief Reggie Burgess, for serving the city of North Charleston for 30 years. You are truly a role model for our children. Here at Janine Batten Summer Camp 2019, we want to thank you and congratulate you on the job well done.
Back on the Paul Brown Show, Chief Burgess. Chief Burgess, tell the audience a little bit about that feeling of being there with that young audience.
Man, Mr. Brown, it was amazing. And it was outstanding. I never could imagine that would happen for me, or I would have never imagined it would be the way it was. I love going to camps. I went to camps.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes when I went to camps, the situation had it where my mother was working 2 and 3 jobs. That's when we got our daily meal at the camps. And I know y'all know about the free lunch, man. You had that cold, fruit in the fruit cup and things of that nature. But not only the meal, but the socialization of the people that were there. So when I got there at Janine Batten, I'm in the audience and I want to uplift the kids, to keep them focused. And I want to be around them in uniform, because to me that's important. When you see officers in uniform, sometimes folks like, oh, they want to shy away. No. I wanted that. So that was great for me. That was a blessing over blessing. That's when you realize the hard work you put in pays off. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know it had to touch you knowing that these young kids looking up to you, and they're seeing you as a role model, and some of them, especially coming from families that probably, that we probably can't imagine, and they see you as one of them.
Yes. Yes, sir. And you're right. Being there in that moment with those kids and the parents was most important to me. And my emotions just got away with me because I try to always stay, with them, to keep an eye on them and talk with them and everything. But I became who I am, an individual. And that's why I cried. And I got emotional looking at it just now, because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that that young person say, no, we're not the worst people. We're not the ones that's always getting in trouble. We are a people. God made us.
Yes, sir.
We're God's children. And if we're his children, we've got to be righteous. And that's why I love being around that. Yes, sir. I do.
After seeing all that's been going on in our TV as far as African American in our society and law enforcement and some of the negative things, what advice do you give your children when they go out there and they're faced with law enforcement?
Yes.
What kind of advice do you give your children?
Yes, sir. My son, Reggie II, my daughter, Kristen, they were born into this profession.
Yes, sir.
And they've always been around law enforcement. They don't know a lot of law enforcement people, but they know some, more than the average black family probably does. But I always keep it real with them now. I said, son, I'm not going to be in that passenger seat with you. So when you get stopped by any officer, I don't care what color, you always practice good habits. You keep your eye focused on what's going on. You listen, and you keep your hands in the area where that officer can see it. Not only for your protection, but for the protection of the officer as well. because most officers, when they see that your hands are in an area where it's not a threat, they don't consider anything threatening.
Yes, sir.
And my daughter's the same way. I tell her as a female, listen to what the officer's saying to you. You know, conversate with them. You know, give them as much information as you can that's legally, you know, asked of.
Yes.
And once you get yourself situated, you want to go that way, and the officer go that way. And I tell them, always think this. Put yourself in that car and say, do I want to treat this officer any kind of way, even if the officer mistreats you? Think about, that could be my dad on the other side. Would I want somebody to mistreat my father this way? So I tell them, you always, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. We go high. So you're always thinking about doing things the right way, no matter what the circumstances. When I was growing up, the biggest things me and my brother used to always fight, people called my mother out of her name.
Cool.
You know the mother jokes growing up. My mother told us, listen, y'all got to get away from that. Y'all have to elevate yourselves. We, think all the time, and we learn. And that's why I tell my kids to always think about how you interact with officers. Think about if that's your father right there. Treat him as kind as you can, because your whole goal is to go away from the traffic stop and keep going into your life. Mm-hmm. It's hard now for African Americans. It's hard. I know it is.
And what do you tell just African Americans? You know what I'm saying? That it's not that hard to just, be calm and just listen to what the officer's telling you, and not to get, take it out of control.
Yeah. Don't ever look at it personal. Even though that stop is personal because it's your vehicle, or when you get up, somebody gets out with you in the community, it is personal. Always realize this. Nowadays in law enforcement, as when I came in, we didn't have that. You have an officer with a body-worn camera. You have an officer that has an in-car camera. You have people on porches with cell phones. We have cameras all over the community. So the eye in the sky doesn't lie. So in other words, all you have to do is do your part by listening to the officer, being as honest as you can with the officer. If the officer, if he or she gets a little angry, you don't get angry. You keep it where you can control yourself. Because number one thing I tell citizens when I interact with them, do not give up your civil rights. Don't give up your rights. Do not let me take them from you. When you are in control of yourself, you have your rights. But once you leave and you get outside of your control, then you have given those rights up. And those rights have been bought and paid for by blood, sweat, and tears from our foreparents and foreparents of other cultures that have walked, that have protested, that have died for us to have these rights. So I always tell them, do not give it up. Always stay in control. Doesn't matter what. And guess what? If you felt mistreated, you have avenues to go down.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to call. Come over to City Hall. Let me see you. Let IA see you. So you have a lot of things now that a lot of people didn't have back in the day. You got cameras all over the place. So the cameras can tell a story as well as people can write statements for you. And guess what? When you go to court, you have the ability to request that camera footage as well, so that you can use that for your defense.
When law enforcement does violence against us, we see camera footage, we see protests, we see all that. But when we have black on black crime in our community, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to be snitches and all that. Why should we start thinking more that we should start looking into our community at ourselves and stuff, and start,
Good question, Mr. Brown. I constantly speak with the civil rights leaders in my city all the time. And one thing I told them is I'm never going to, as a law enforcement leader, I'm never going to talk about black on black crime. Because when you have let's say a Asian guy goes into a Jewish sanctuary and harm somebody, they don't say Asian against Jew. You don't ever see them say Muslim against Christian. Nothing. We're the only people that allow people to label us as black on black crime. I call it crime. I call it what it is. And what I'm saying to you, in essence, is this. We as a people, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, we cannot disagree without being violently disagreeable. That is our issue.
Yes, sir.
We can't just simply disagree with you without being violent. This morning, Mr. Brown, around 2 and 3 this morning, we had a family traveling on the roadways in the southern part of my city. Black males in another vehicle fired into this car. An 8-year-old female child was struck. That's not black on black. That's that individual doing something against a victim. Mr. Brown, one of the things I cannot stand, and I don't hate things because I'm a God-fearing man, but I'm close to it. I hate victimization. I hate it. And the victimization now is covered by, as you stated, stop snitching or whatever. That snitching thing is that's a clown show. That's a facade. That's not even real. You know why? Because my father said, if I did something wrong and you witnessed that and you go to law enforcement or my parents, whatever, you told the truth, you're not snitching. You're telling the truth.
Yes, sir.
You know, my nephew got killed in 2010 in the Union Heights area. I've yet solved that case. We know who pulled the trigger, but the folks don't want to say anything because they says it's snitching. That's all right. The Lord will provide. So I don't believe in that snitching thing. I don't believe in that. I believe in you telling the truth. Now, I don't believe in you coming into City Hall and lying on somebody. That's wrong.
Correct.
But if you come into City Hall and you tell the truth, you're doing the right thing. That's simply doing the right thing. And that's the problem, is that a lot of folks who are doing crimes, they are getting and they're controlling the minds of folks who are being victimized or witnesses to these things, and they're making it seem like, oh, well, this is out of the street. Well, you and I know, real life is real life. The street is only a facade. We've all experienced that street thing, and when we became older men as we are, we realize it's about what we're doing as men, you know, than what the streets are saying. Because the streets are not going to, when you go to jail for 30 and 40 years, the streets are not going to be loyal to you. When you go in front of a judge and facing time, the streets not going to be loyal to you. When you sit back looking at your canteen in prison, the streets not going to be loyal to you. It's those families.
Yes, sir.
Your mother, your father, your brother, and sister. That's the people who are going to be holding you down.
Chief here at the North Charleston Police Department, and I want to present to you today Real Men Wear Pink official trophy from the American Cancer Society for all the wonderful work you all did last October. And we're just thrilled to have your partnership in this fight, because these cancer patients simply could not get the support and the research advances that they need without community partners like each one of you. And Chief Burgess, we can't say thank you enough for your leadership with this, and we're so excited to have y'all back again. And thank you. From the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all these cancer patients, thank you.
Thank you.